So I didn't touch coding in my first year. My main motive was to get upgraded, and I focused on my CGPA entirely on the first year.
So coming to the next section, we would like to know which branches were eligible. Was there any CGPA criteria?
But I didn't focus very much on DSA because third sem में mechanical subjects में बहुत मुश्किल होते हैं, which nobody talks about.
When you came to know that I would be having an interview schedule, what was your preparation, or did you relax? Like, let's see what happens next.
Sorry, as the first round just ended, and after 1 minute there was a power cut in my area.
Mehak, you come from a core branch, and entering tech world must be overwhelming for you at first. Like many companies have that CGP criteria, sometimes backlog criteria, and in particular, branch becomes a hindrance. So, what is your message for your juniors specifically from core branches?
Basically, people have a very wrong perception about IGTTW कि ठीक है कोई भी branch ले लो. I recently saw a tweet and a girl was like, यार काश IGTTW में मैकेनिकली ले ली होती, इतनी अच्छी placements और internship हो रही है.
Hey everyone, I'm Vashitva, your host for today's session, and today Mehak would be joining us. She would be sharing her journey from Mech to Tech. The stage is all yours, Mehak. Over to you.
Okay, so hi Vashitva. First of all, thanks for having me here. So here's a little introduction about myself. I am Mehak Dhamija and I am a third year undergraduate at IGTTW. I'm pursuing my engineering in mechanical and automation branch. And so I do not have a very big list of achievements, but here's something. I am a UN Millennium Fellow. I have been a Linux Foundation Scholar and I am an upcoming SWE Intern this year at Microsoft.
So Mehak, firstly, I would like to know when did you started up coding and how did you manage coding along with your mechanical core subjects?
Okay, so my journey starts from the first year. I got the mechanical and automation branch, which was obviously not something I wanted from my side. But since it was what it is, I thought, okay, let's work hard and I want to get upgraded. So I didn't touch coding in my first year. My main motive was to get upgraded and I focused on my CGPA entirely on the first year. So I thought according to the last year's trend, so 10 to 15 students will get upgraded and I will be definitely one of them because I'm working very hard in my exams. But unfortunately at the last only 4 to 5 students were upgraded and I was not one of them. So I thought maybe I have wasted my first year in getting a good CGPA. I haven't even worked on my skills or I haven't even made any projects. So now it was second year. So I thought, okay, now it is what it is. I have the mechanical branch and I have to work hard to get into the tech field and get an internship or a good placement, which was the final motive. So in the second year, I didn't directly start with DSA. First of all, I thought let's make some projects because I have to make my resume stand out from others. So in the second year itself, I started with web development and made some projects. This is about third semester. Now there comes the fourth. So I also bought the Coding Ninja's C++ and DSA course in my third semester. I thought, okay, so let's work with this simultaneously and we will study about C++ and DSA along with my projects. But I didn't focus very much on DSA because third sem में mechanical के subjects भी बहुत मुश्किल होते हैं, which nobody talks about. Like we do not have gate smashers जो एक रात पहले बैठ के and we will see the playlist and subjects हो जाए. So it is not the scene with the mechanical subjects because first year is usually common. We have physics, chemistry and math, so it is easily manageable. But third year we see some subjects like heat transfer, thermal engineering, and we get very overwhelmed at how we will cover such subjects along with DSA. So third semester usually went with projects and we came to understand, okay, these are the subjects, we have to cover it this way, and so it was kind of a difficult situation, so I didn't focus much on DSA. Now there comes the fourth semester. Now it was around, I guess, fourth semester started in January 2023 and and only 6 months were left for internship. So I thought कि अब तो टाइम है, अब तो DSA करना ही पड़ेगा, 6-7 महीने रह गए. So and I at that time I completed the C++ course of Coding Ninja, but I didn't start with the DSA course. It was a 5-month course basically. So 2 months were for the C++ basics and 3 months course was so I only covered the foundation, which I later realized कि ये करने की जरूरत नहीं थी. because in my 11th and 12th, I already studied C++. So it was all basics, arrays, linked lists, which I already knew. So I kind of realized that, okay, I just wasted my time covering the C++ basics. I should have directly started with DSA. So now there comes January, and I will be very honest, the Coding Ninja course is not worth it. Because when I searched on YouTube, I found really good channels and really good resources, and itna deeply courses में covered नहीं होता. Any paid course, I'm talking about any paid course. So I started with coding in January. So I first started looking for videos, and it took a lot of time to find the perfect resource. So finally, I studied from Take You Forward channel, which is a Strivers channel. So I started with that. I started with the SD DSA sheet of Strivers, and I started solving questions on LeetCode. Again, it was not easy to manage it with the mechanical subjects because जैसे semester increase होता है, the difficulty level of the subject increases.
Also increase.
You get thermal engineering 1 in third semester, and then thermal engineering 2 in. So the difficulty level also increases.
Which I think is actually taught by the same professor in our university, both the subjects. The experience was not that much good when I heard from my friends.
Yeah, and और कभी-कभी ऐसा होता है.
When I used to come to home after giving that DBMS exam, I still remember one of my friends telling, the next is going to be the thermal engineering paper. I don't know how it is going to go. Bhagwan, pass kara diyo bas.
Oh, seriously, and we
still remember that.
We hardly,
you know, how much numeric section it is having, what is going to give, the Hooke's law and everything. I was like, I have a DBMS exam. Let me study the SQL queries first.
And we were like CSE students, so they are like एक रात पहले Gates Matches की playlist देख लेते हैं, and we do not have any playlists, we do not have anything. We have to study from the books itself, and it's not like that teacher provide notes or something. You know, college में खुद ही करना पड़ता है. तो फोर्थ सेमेस्टर में डिफिकल्टी लेवल भी था, और साथ में ये भी था कि अब CGPA मेंटेन करनी है बिकॉज इंटर्नशिप ड्राइव इज गोइंग टू अराइव एंड यू हैव टू मेंटेन अ CGPA. And I had a good CGPA in my first year. It was a cumulative of 9.24, I guess. So I was like, अब first year में इतनी मेहनत की है तो maintain करनी है अब अच्छे से. So I managed to somehow get a good CGPA. My cumulative CGPA till now, till fourth semester is 9.09, which I think is decent to sit in an internship drive or placement further. So I basically...
It's more than enough. It's more than enough. And a great CGPA to carry forward.
Yeah, and being in mechanical branch, I'm proud that I've maintained this CGPA.
Maintained this one. Perfect.
Okay, so from January till my fourth semester ended. It ended on like 16th May. I guess 16th May was the last exam. So that semester ended. And I have almost covered most of the topics. I didn't cover graphs up till then. I have covered everything till DP. And I have practiced like enough questions. I think till the mid of the May, I practiced around 250 questions on LeetCode. So I was satisfied that, okay, only one topic is left and I still have 2 months of summer break with me, which I think is very good क्योंकि college का कोई pressure नहीं होता, कोई exams नहीं है, so that is the time you can utilize the most. So summer break में I started with the remaining topic. I started with graphs and I managed to do at least 350 questions on LeetCode. So my go-to platforms were basically LeetCode, GFG and InterviewBit. InterviewBit I touched like 15 days before the companies started arriving because I thought now that's the time for revision. I have to just go through all the topics once and get a good idea of solving questions in a particular time.
That sounds pretty much well. From first semester we have come far to fifth semester over, right? So I did heard that you have Linux Foundation. You're a Linux Foundation mentee, right?
Yeah.
So when did it came? In which semester and what was it exactly? Since I'm not that person who is that much into open source, even I would love to explore now.
Okay, so it was in the third semester. Third semester ke around you will get a lot of opportunities, a lot of forms arrive. Okay, this scholarship, open source programs. I didn't know enough about the open source programs, but from some YouTube videos, I came to know, okay, GSOC, Google Summer of Code, Linux Foundation, and then there is this Bitcoin, Summer of Bitcoin. So there are a lot of open source programs. I didn't know up till that, okay, what open source is. So when these scholarship programs arrived, I thought, okay, so let's start with this because projects cover कर लिए थे, tech stacks हो गए हैं, now dive into something good. Because अभी DSA में time था, internship drive में बहुत time था, so you think that let's explore more fields. So I started searching on YouTube about open source, and it was like you should have to contribute in some projects. So when you go on the portal of any open source program, you will get a list of the projects you have to contribute in. So I started with some of the projects, contributed in 2-3 projects. Based on the tech stacks I have already learned. So I'm basically into web development. I have learned the tech stacks, React.js, Next.js, Node.js, and these are some front end and some of the back end tech stacks. So I started contributing in there. In that, I contributed in 2-3 projects and then showcased it in the forms that arrived for the open source programs. And yes, I finally got one of them. So open source is something very different. You need a lot of time, and you have to be a perfect at least in in a particular domain, be it web development or AI/ML. So I think this is it for open source.
And what was your experience with the program ended? Like, you must be connected with fellow mentees and mentors. How did it change your learning experience?
It was actually, I was awarded with a particular Linux Foundation course, which was a basic course. And I have to daily interact with some of the mentees who are also doing that course. So it was a very good experience sharing your doubts that you can ask someone about कि यार ये कैसे solve होना है, which usually do not happen if you do not have a peer group. So I think you get that environment and you get that group and you get to learn so much through that.
So coming to the next section, we would like to know which branches were eligible. Was there any CGPA criteria?
Okay, so for Microsoft, luckily this time all the branches were eligible. This do not happen every time. But this time it was open for all the branches like CSE, IT, EC, ECAI and the MA branch, Mechanical and Automation. So, and the CGPA criteria was everyone with a CGPA more than 7 were allowed to sit, and dead backlogs and active backlogs both were allowed. So the Microsoft conducted an online assessment, and it gave a lot of time for the online assessment. I guess it was more than 90 minutes, and there were only 2 questions. So the first question was a very simple array-based question, which I will rate as a easy to medium level question. And the second question was a graph-based question, which was based on topological sort, and it was kind of a hard question, so I will rate it as medium to hard. So this was the online assessment, and after getting shortlisted, we got to know that there will be 2 to 3 rounds.
So when the results were announced for the online assessment, you did got on WhatsApp group that black background pic with mails written in blue. I still remember that day. So you must have got that I am being shortlisted. What was your reaction, and when did you came to know that? When you came to know that I would be having an interview scheduled, what was your preparation, or did you relax? Like, let's see what happens next.
Okay, so to be very honest, when I gave the online assessment and when I ended it, I knew कि मेरा online assessment अच्छा गया. I have managed to solve the 2 questions in a very less time. So मैंने तभी से थोड़ी उम्मीद लगा ली थी कि okay, I'm going to get selected. If I will get selected, let's prepare for the interview from now only. So when the online assessment ended, I didn't wait for the shortlisting result. I started preparing that okay, let's revise the topic. Now God knows if I will get shortlisted or not. We will see further. So I started preparing after the online assessment only. I started revising my topics. I didn't do any new topics during that time. I just started revising trees, graphs, DP, linked list, and I revised all the topics. So around a day, we received a list that, okay, these people are shortlisted. And after 2 days, the interviews will be held. So now coming to the interviews. So the first round was the technical round, which was a completely DSA based round. So I went in the interview, it was on Meet. So when I entered the interview, he was like, he greeted with an, okay, hi Mehak, what is a BST? And I was like, okay, I've just been in the Meet, and he's asking me questions directly like this. So, okay, I answered, okay, this is a BST, like this, and he then told, ki, okay, let's directly jump to the DSA questions. And he asked me, he didn't give me any link or any platform link. He directly asked me, okay, open a Word or a document. And I was like, यार document खोलूंगी तो पूरा brackets का रहेगा, ये करो. तो मैंने कहा कि can I open an editor? So he was very cool. He was like, yeah, open anything. So I opened the Lead Code Playground, which is an editor. So he asked me a lot of questions because I'm usually a very fast speaker. मुझे क्वेश्चन आता है तो फिर मैं फटाफट ऐसे बताती जाती हूँ कि 5-6 मिनट में okay, this is this, we have to, this is a process, this is a best approach, this is the optimal approach. So he asked me a hash map based string question, which I didn't take a lot of time to cover that. I took around 10 minutes to explain and code because it was not a very long code. So it was around 10 minutes for the first question, and then he asked me a follow-up question, and I modified the code for the follow-up question. Then he asked me a question based on binary search trees. Okay, then it was again in 10 to 15 minutes. I explained him the brute force and then to the optimal approach. Then he again asked me a follow-up question for BST only. Then also in the same code, I edited my code and explained him the approaches. So this took around half an hour. So half an hour we were completely on DSA questions. So this ended, and now he asked me if I know the object-oriented programming, if I've studied it in my semester. I told him that yes, I've studied it in my semester. So he asked me a lot of questions on object-oriented programming. He asked me all the terms, polymorphism kya hota hai, encapsulation, and private, protected, public, how do you call it? And he asked me a lot of questions in object-oriented programming. And since I was well versed with this, I have already studied this, so I was able to answer it very smoothly. So around 15 minutes, he asked me question on object-oriented programming. Then we were still left with a lot of time. It was supposed to be of 1 hour. It can be more than 1 hour, but it was basically supposed to be for 1 hour. And then he started, okay, let's ask you some puzzles. And I was not at all prepared for puzzles. I didn't even think that in an interview they will ask for puzzles, especially in a Microsoft interview, because मैंने जितने भी experiences पढ़े हैं, the first round is completely a DSA based round. तो उन्होंने puzzles पूछनी शुरू की, and I was very much stuck in the first puzzle. I took around 10 minutes to think for that and answer that, but in the last he was satisfied, and then he asked me one more puzzle, which was kind of easy, and I took around 5 minutes, I guess, to answer that. So for the last 15 minutes, he asked me these 2 puzzles, and then he asked me if I have any questions for him. So I asked him some 2-3 general questions. Okay, how is life at Microsoft, or how is it working there, and which team is he working on, what product he is working on. And it was around 5 minutes for this question, and then the interview ended. So this was about the first round. And there's a little story. As the first round just ended, and after 1 minute, there was a power cut in my area. So I was like, अब लाइट चली गई है घर की, वाईफाई बंद हो गया, सब हो गया, and पूरा अंधेरा. Okay, I thought, okay, let's not panic. And after 2 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes, I received a message. Okay, Mehak, you have the next round in 10 to 15 minutes. I was like, अब Wi-Fi भी नहीं है, घर पे light भी नहीं है. So I just put on a lamp. मैंने lamp जलाया, and it was faced directly on my face. And I connected my laptop with my mobile data hotspot, and I was like, okay, let's not panic. Let's see, जो होता है देखा जाएगा. So after 10 to 15 minutes, I joined the second round, which was told that this is a final round. We were not told what type of round it will be. Will be an HR round or what? This was basically the final round. So when I entered, I first apologized. Okay, there is a power cut in my area. I'm sorry for the black background, but at least my face is visible. So the interview was very cool, and he calmed me that it's okay, it happens, and we will not judge you on the basis of this. We'll judge you on the basis of your interview, your answers. And I was like, okay. So, and it was, I think, and it was not. हाँ, क्योंकि बहुत शुरू में बहुत पैनिक हो गया था कि यार अब क्या, पीछे का बैकग्राउंड पूरा ब्लैक है एंड ओनली माय फेस इज विजिबल दैट थ्रू टू अ लैम्प. एंड
सो इंटरव्यू एक्सपीरियंस में भी नहीं मिला होगा हमें कि पीछे हमारी लाइट ही जा चुकी है.
एंड so the interview started, and it was not a HR round, but it was more of a hiring manager round. So he told me that he has 17 years of experience in the tech industry, and he started with that, okay, give your introduction, tell me about your projects, tell me about your hobbies. So I gave my introduction, told about my projects. I told that these are the tech stacks I have worked on. So he then asked me, okay, let's dive into your projects and let's know about what knowledge you have about the tech stacks that you have worked on. So he asked me some basic questions. Okay, how to call an API, or how will you manage if you will have 1000 users on a website at the same time. And around like 10 to 15 minutes he asked me these questions about my projects, and since I was well versed with the projects, I was able to answer almost all the questions. So then he moved forward and asked me some management based questions, some leadership based questions about if you are in a team and there will be some conflict between two people, how will you manage about that, how will you manage this situation, basically situation based questions. So around 15 to 20 minutes he asked me about these questions. And then he was very interested in the fact that what else I do except studying, except coding. So I told him, okay, I love reading books. I have read these books. I love reading fictional books and some autobiographies. And he was very impressed. Okay, तो तुम coding के अलावा भी कुछ करते हो अपनी life में? So then he asked me at the end some management questions about if you are working in Microsoft and there will be a team, you will have seniors, and how will you deal with these kind of people. So it was basically some basic questions which we usually expect in an HR round. So there were these questions, and then he was telling me about what team he is in, what kind of work he do at Microsoft, and he asked me if I have any questions, and I asked some of the questions. Okay, how do you manage this time of work? And he told me, okay, except working, we also play here, we also go on trips, and we also enjoy our social life. So, and at the last 10 minutes of the interview, suddenly घर में light आ जाती है. And he was very very impressed कि चलो अब तुम dark background से एक अच्छे background में आ गए हो. And I was like, okay, चलो कुछ तो अच्छा हुआ interview में. And he told me that he really appreciated the fact that I was calm during the entire interview and didn't panic about the situation. So this was about the whole second round, and then after the round ended, few hours later we came to know, okay, these are the students who got selected, and I was selected, and I was very happy for the same.
During the journey, we had 2 rounds of interview, what portion that you loved about yourself, that something I am proud of myself, this is what I nailed at it, and I am proud of myself that I managed up the situation. While looking at this, I can definitely see that the round 2, in which the light went and the interviewer did had 17 years of experience. Like when I went, if I go into an interview and somebody says that there is no light at my background, someone says I have 17 years of experience, so my first reaction would be, I should be at least in good state before anything else. So what was that?
So the main thing you have to manage in this situation is do not panic, because that will just deteriorate your performance. Because ऐसे situation में you do not expect that anything that during in that interview on that day only there will be a power cut in your area. You do not expect this type of situation. But yeah, I also think that it is very much dependent on your performance and not the situation you are in. Because बहुत बार होता है, you do not have a personal room in your house, or you do not live in an area जो बहुत शांत होता है, there is always some noise. So these kind of situations always arise, and I think it was my first interview experience, and that too with such situations. I think I managed it quite well.
You nailed it perfectly even. So, during the course of preparation, did you give any mock interviews or practice on any platforms?
Okay, so I didn't give any mock interviews. I didn't get time to give the mock interviews because my preparation, all the topics, all the preparation just ended in the month of July. And so I didn't get to practice any mock interviews, but yeah, I practiced a lot of questions. Also, the most important thing you have to practice in interviews is the contest. I practiced a lot of lead code context, which gave me a bigger perspective on how to solve the questions in a particular time, because that thing will prepare you for online assessments. The contest that you will give कि 1 घंटे में 4 questions करने, that will prepare you for online assessments. So I think I practiced that only, and my main platforms were only lead code and interview bit. Interview bit I just started before 15 days, before I came to know, okay, after 15 to 20 days the companies are going to arrive. So I practiced questions on interview bit, some previous year company wise questions also, which are available on GFG. So these were only I practiced. I didn't give any mock interviews, but I think this was my first interview experience, and I now quite know कि कैसे answer करना है interviews में. And I also asked some seniors, okay, so how we have to answer the questions, how we have to explain the questions, and what approaches do they expect, what answers do they expect, and I think I got to know quite well about the same.
Okay, so you're given a question like how are you going to start if juniors can get a list, how do you need to answer, even if like you didn't had that much of experience of mock interviews, because I believe mock interviews usually build up your temperament and tell you how to think aloud, how to answer specifically. Like some people follow STAR methodology, some have an approach to like first let's go to the brute force, then time complexity.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, when a question is asked, you have to listen very carefully to the question, because they will not repeat the question 2 to 3 and 4 times to you. You have to listen it very carefully, and if there are some doubts, you have to ask it at that time only. Okay, I am confused with this problem. Can you explain it with a test case, or can you give a sample example of what do you mean by this? So first of all is clarification of the question. You must clarify the question. And then my approach usually is starting with the brute force, the basic force, which the interviewer expects that, okay, you have to make sure, you have to pretend basically like that you are thinking the solution. Even if you know the best, even if you have done that question and you know the optimal approach for that question, you do not have to directly jump to the optimal approach. You have to tell the brute force, okay, this is what I am thinking, and you have to explain them. You do not have to code the brute force, because it will take a lot. It is a 1 hour interview. It will take a lot of time if you will code the brute force, then the optimal, and then the best one. So this is not the case. So what I do is explain the brute force. Okay, this is what I am thinking. Now comes to the better approach. So you can code the better approach if the interviewer agrees. If you do not know the optimal approach, or you directly want to jump to the better approach, then you can ask the interviewer, okay, this is what I am thinking for the better approach. This will now the time complexity can improve during this approach. So if the interviewer asks you to code, you can code the same. And now if you know the optimal approach, at last you have to code the optimal approach. So my strategy is usually tell them the brute force, tell them the better approach, and then tell them the most optimal approach. Then in most of the cases, they will tell you to code the most optimal approach. So this is my strategy during any question.
Mehak, you come from a core branch, and entering tech world must be overwhelming for you at first. Like many companies have that CGP criteria, sometimes backlog criteria, and in particular, branch becomes a hindrance. So what is your message for your juniors specifically from core branches?
Okay, so basically people from core branches. Now I'm particularly talking about branches which are below EC or electrical, because 90% of I will say 95% of the companies are open till electrical branch. And for the mechanical branch or even branches lower than that, बहुत कम companies open होती है. For example, companies like Intuit, Adobe, Wells Fargo, Providence, these were some of the companies which were not open for the mechanical branch. So you get very less opportunities even during on campus. And especially in off campus, it's specifically mentioned that okay, only CS branches are allowed, that only till branches at EC are allowed. So off campus mein to chances are very low. So I think this is a very hindering thing that that even if you have that much skills and even if you are at the same level as a CS student, but your branch can become a big factor during your internship drive or your placement drive, because most of the companies will not consider you even if they open it for the mechanical branch. कुछ companies होती है, they say कि okay, we are open for all the branches, but we know what the scene is, and finally they will shortlist people from the upper branches. So if you are someone from mechanical branch or below that, then you have to get that. You have to work very hard for this, and do not screw your on-campus internship drive or placement drive, because this is one way where you can get your internship or placement very easily. Because off-campus already there is so much of competition. Then there are CS branches, IT branches, so it's more difficult for off-campus students. And so basically people have a very wrong perception about IGDTW कि ठीक है कोई भी branch ले लो. I recently saw a tweet and a girl was like, यार काश IGDTU में mechanical ही ले ली होती, इतनी अच्छी placements और internship हो रही है. And I was like, okay, this is not the case, because we have a lot of students and the ratio of the people getting internship is very less, which people do not see outside. We know it internally, okay, this is the case, and we have this much of students in the core branches and only 2 to 3 are getting internship or placement. The ratio for the same is very less. So if you are someone from the core branch, you have to work very hard to maintain a good CGPA, to cover your mechanical subject, and also to cover DSA interviews. And I think just apply for opportunities irrespective of considering your branch, because if we go by branch, then you cannot apply for any opportunity, because it specifically mentioned that it is open for CSIT branches. So, but this is not the case. You should apply for all the opportunities, and you never know that when you will get the best opportunity and when will be your time. So just work very hard, and all the best, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mehak, for joining me up today for the session. Firstly, a big congratulations and best of luck for your journey ahead.
Thank you so much, Madhu. I had a great time sharing my experience, and I wish everyone watching this all the best for your internship drive or your placement drive.